Okay. Hi, I'm Lorraine Niemela, and I teach here at the Newark Museum. I teach on Tuesday mornings on the fall and in the spring. And usually it's watercolor, but I do incorporate some drawing in it. I also teach a drawing class using a sketchbook in the summer sometimes. And I encourage all my students in any class to carry a sketchbook. This is one of my old ones. So whether you're a passenger in a car or in a train, or you have a few minutes to wait for someone, and then that gives you some kinds of materials to work for artwork itself, or also it just keeps you in touch with your kind of artistic nature. I teach also in the summer at Newark and Peters Valley, and also down on the Jersey Shore. My philosophy of teaching is, it kind of comes from political discussions. At one point, someone said, "Where's the beef?" And I realized that students need information first, and if they have that information, then the next part is to connect that to who they are and their style, and to inspire them to work through their life rather than just a moment in a class. I start with very basic things, and even if a student has had watercolor before, they all learn something, because I like to talk about the physical qualities of materials, how the paint moves, what kind of material, what materials are worth using, and I'm here using Arch's cold press 140 watercolor paper. The paper for watercolor is the most important material, and the less adept you are with the paint, the more important it is that you use good quality paper, so that you learn what you're doing is reflected on the paper, rather than the paper changing your style and affecting it, giving you a feeling like you really don't know how to paint. The second part is the palette I use. This one is mine, so I have a lot of colors, but I have the students use prismatic colors. In other words, no earth colors, no black, no white, and that way they learn how to mix colors and find colors. Like if they're looking at this table, we try to figure out, is it warm, is it cool, what kind of colors here are warm or cool in relationship to learning about how to mix a color directly. And we use one brush, a number 12 or 14 round brush, watercolor brush, for the same reason as everything else. I like students to have little variation in what they're doing, so they can see exactly that the materials are supporting them rather than creating their own look or information. The technique-wise, then I go into techniques very carefully. I'm interested in watercolor as a special medium. It's got a certain flow, and the only other material that I can think of that works in the same way is glazes on ceramics, because you put the material down and it has a little bit of life of its own. And if you allow it to have that life and then just kind of work with it, you can control the medium, but you also have a serendipity of movement. So what I do is I talk about how the color moves. So, and I have a sketch here that I was going to work with. Simple, very simple. This is Colorado, where my son lives, and I'm a passenger in a car, and I see a few curves, and I just put them down. They may not be exact, but they get the spirit of the place. And then if I'm painting from here, I'm not trying to use exactly the lines. I'm just trying to get a feeling. So I'm going to get my colors wet. Ultramarine blue, or French ultramarine, I think they call it. And this over here is cadmium scarlet. And I'm going to just quickly put some curves down. And the beauty of watercolor is that it moves as you paint. So you're creating, action and fluid action as you're painting. You want to know where that wet edge is, and you want to know how you're going to work with it. I'm just going to put some sky in there. And I'll maybe pick up a little other color. And I can put another bit of water there to pull it down. And if I want it to work into this hill so that it moves, so the hill sort of reaches out into the sky, I can make sure that I have some wet and edges joining. How much water is on your brush is probably most important, and one of the important things about watercolors when you're drying your brush, that's why I like this roll of toilet paper, you dry it at the ferrule so you're not taking your color off. And we'll also talk about a little bit about distance. The closer an area is, the clearer the detail. This has a nice hard edge here, and the warmer it is. And I give a vast amount of notes, but here's one of them: near and far. What makes something look far away and near? The cubists flatten space, and so to some extent, if you want to get depth in your piece, you have to remember to go back to some of the older techniques of less contrast in the background, that kind of thing. So I have them listed there for my students to remind them. So now, if this is a very simple painting, if I want to go back into it, I can go back when it's dry or it's wet. And all those things are technique information that we go over so that when a person sees something, they can have a feeling for where they'll take it. Usually when I'm teaching, I have maybe one or two exercises to start the class so that the student is relaxed and more, what they say, within their graphic brain as they start to paint their paintings. There's other techniques that are interesting, but one of the things that's really important is to learn how to use your brush. And so I have the students do different kinds of strokes with their brush. That's a normal way of holding a brush, but brushes can also be used right from the point. They can get a little more blue on there. They can dance around. And if you look at Asian art, you get a real sense. I can't resist throwing a little water in there and seeing what happens. It's a lot of water if I want to pick it up, to have it a little less wet so that it won't backwash and rush around. I can just pick some up. But Asian art has a wonderful lesson for us in the movement of the brush and how to use it. I was just watching a video about a Korean artist, and he says something to the effect, it was a historical biography video, and he said something like, every brush stroke should have a purpose. And I tend to go into that school because it's very hard. If you start trying to paint something in and paint something in, you lose a lot of the quality of what the movement of watercolor is, and also you rough up that paper, so you end up with a surface that is less lively.